Um, Imagine, just for a second, that you are standing right in the middle of a massive thunderstorm.
Okay.
But you aren't running for cover. You aren't looking for a
You're
roof.
just walking right out into it.
Exactly. You're walking right out into it. Imagine a sky where lightning isn't just weather, it's the atmosphere you breathe.
Wow.
It's a literal power source. And imagine that the people living there don't just watch the lightning, they conduct it. Like their cells are vibrating with electricity.
It's a really striking image. And for the world we're covering today, that isn't just a poetic metaphor. It's a biological necessity.
Right. So welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are digging into a stack of notes on what is arguably one of the most intricate sci-fi frameworks we've come across.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's called the NeoMercy Clan universe.
Yeah.
And I have to say, this one really grabbed me. It doesn't just feel like a story. It feels like a simulation.
It really does. It's a massive mythos. And what makes it unique and why I'm so excited to unpack this for you today is that it's built on a story engine.
A story engine.
Yeah, it's not just random cool ideas thrown together because an author thought it would look neat.
Oh.
There is a strict causal logic to everything.
Right. And our mission today is to zoom in specifically on planet ID 103, also known as Arcadia Prime, and look at the biography of a figure named Rivnor.
Rivnor.
But before we get to the guy throwing literal lightning bolts around, we have to understand the sandbox he's playing in, because this engine you mentioned, it dictates everything.
It dictates absolutely everything. So let's start with the structure of this universe. The NeoMercy universe is a network.
Okay.
You have 100 primary worlds. They're labeled planet IDs 1 through 100.
Straightforward enough.
Right? But then you have this special, slightly more volatile set called the Earth line. And those are IDs 101 through 110.
And our focus today, Arcadia Prime, is ID 103.
Exactly.
So it's firmly in that Earth line set.
It is. Now, here is the engine concept we talked about. And this is the key insight for anyone trying to understand how this universe functions. It's a causal chain. The environment of the planet dictates the evolution of the species.
Okay.
Then, the biology of that species dictates how their society forms. And finally, that society dictates what kind of technology they build.
So you can't just have random tech appearing just because the plot needs it.
No, not at all. It has to be earned through that chain. Like, if you live on a planet with high gravity, your bone density is higher.
Sure.
Your architecture is squat and reinforced, and maybe your technology focuses on anti-grav propulsion because that's the primary problem you need to solve every single day.
It's interstellar survival logic.
Precisely. It's much less about good versus evil and way more about adapt or die.
Right.
The conflict in this universe arises from diversity. You have resource scarcity, trade disputes, clashing ideologies. It feels very geopolitical just on a cosmic scale.
And sitting on top of all this, staring down at these squabbles are the Nine.
The Nine. Yeah, we absolutely have to mention them because they set the stakes for everything.
Right, the cosmic hierarchy.
Exactly. These are omnipotent entities, the arbiters of reality. Think of them as the ceiling of this universe.
The ceiling.
Yeah, if a civilization gets too powerful or if someone starts messing with the fabric of reality too much, they end up on the Nine's radar.
That's a terrifying thought. You evolved to survive your brutal planet, but if you evolve too well, the gods come down and crush you.
That is the central tension of the entire mythos, which brings us perfectly to Arcadia Prime, planet ID 103, located in the Lancia sector.
Okay, let's talk about the locals. Who are we dealing with down there?
The dominant species is known as the Denjin.
Denjin.
Right, and visually, they look like us. No scales, no wings, no cybernetic implants by default.
Just regular humans?
Pretty much. They live longer, about 200 Earth years, but otherwise they seem like standard humans until you look at their psychological profile.
Yeah, I was looking at the data sheet you sent over. There's a statistic here that just jumps off the page. Aggression level 10.
It's the maximum rating in the NeoMercy system.
See, when I see aggression level 10, I picture, I don't know, generic barbarians. Just running around, starting wars for fun, conquering planets. But the notes say the Denjin are actually peaceful.
That is the contradiction, and it's what makes them so fascinating. They are culturally peaceful. They value art, they value philosophy, stability, but that aggression level 10, that is a defensive metric.
How does that work?
Think of a beehive.
Okay.
Bees are peaceful, right? They make honey, they pollinate flowers, they go about their business. But if you threaten the hive...
They swarm.
They swarm. The Denjin take that exact concept to a planetary scale. If they sense an outside threat, if they feel their way of life is truly in danger, they have absolutely no reservations about destroying entire planets.
Whoa. So it's 0 to 100.
It's 0 to genocide. That is what level 10 means in this universe. They don't do minor skirmishes. It's total warfare or nothing.
That sets an incredibly high-stakes stage for our main character, Rivnor. He's born into a species that is completely chill until they decide to wipe you out of existence. And he's born onto a planet that is essentially a giant battery.
Let's look at that environment again. Because Arcadia Prime isn't just stormy. The sources describe rolling thunderclouds that never fully clear. Lightning weaves like veins through the sky.
It sounds almost beautiful, but in a terrifying way.
It is. And remember, the engine we talked about, environment shapes biology. Living under that much electromagnetic stress, the Denjin evolved. They don't just endure the static in the air. They resonate with it.
Their cells conduct electricity.
Yes.
Which brings us to Rivnor. Now, usually in these kinds of stories, the hero is a prince or a chosen one from some ancient prophecy. But Rivnor is just a nobody, right?
Because he's the son of laborers. His parents were engineers who climbed the lightning towers to do routine maintenance, pure blue-collar workers. But his birth, that was different.
The source material has this line. It says, while other babies cried, he pulsed.
It's such a visceral detail. Imagine the scene. You're in an arcology dome, the storm is splitting the sky outside, and this newborn infant is literally sparking. He's shorting out the lamps in the delivery room.
The notes mention he actually singed the hair of the midwives who delivered him.
Right. And, this sounds super cool in a comic book context, like, oh, look, baby with superpowers. But in a biological context, this is a severe medical emergency.
Because it's too much power.
Exactly. The Denjin call these children storm prodigies, and historically, they almost always die young.
But why? I mean, if the species evolved to conduct electricity, why does having more of it kill them?
Because biology, even alien biology, has limits. We run on electricity, right? Our nerves are just tiny wires carrying tiny currents. But if you shove high voltage through a low voltage system, things melt.
You blow a fuse.
You blow a fuse. But in a human body, blowing a fuse means your nervous system ruptures. Your heart collapses because the electrical signals governing the beat just get scrambled. It literally burns the flesh from the inside out.
Wow.
Rivnor wasn't expected to be a hero. He was expected to be a tragedy, a brief flash.
But he didn't die. He survived.
He did. As a child, he was described as a machine whisperer. He could coax sparks from dead batteries. He had this intuitive cellular connection to the current.
But as he got older, that connection stopped being cute and started being dangerous.
Very dangerous. By adolescence, the power was growing faster than his physical body could handle. It was wild, erratic, and remember where we are. Arcadia Prime, a society with an aggression level 10 capability.
Right, they don't mess around.
They are deeply pragmatic. You cannot have a walking nuclear reactor running around your city unchecked.
So they had a choice to make. Put him down or train him.
And they chose training. They sent him to the circuit trials.
I want to pause here for you listening, because this is where the NeoMercy lore really shines for me. When I hear training, I think of a movie montage, meditating under a waterfall, lifting rocks in a forest.
Right, the classic hero stuff.
But this sounds more like torture.
It's physics. Brutal physics. If you're a learner who loves technical details, you'll appreciate this. They didn't use magic spells to train him. They used fundamental laws of electricity.
The sources mention plasma chambers and electromagnetic coils.
Yeah.
What were they actually doing to him in there?
They were forcing his biology to conform to Ohm's law.
Okay, let's unpack that. Ohm's law, that's V equals IR, right? Voltage equals current times resistance.
Correct. Rivnor is dealing with massive voltage, the V, from the storms. That's the environment. He can't change that.
Right.
And if he lets that current, the I run wild through his body, it kills him. So the only variable he can control is the resistance, the R.
So he literally had to learn to change his own internal resistance.
Consciously. He had to learn restraint. He had to tighten his own bioelectric field to stop the current from tearing his organs apart. Think about the sheer mental effort required to manually regulate the resistance of your own nervous system while you are actively being electrocuted.
That sounds incredibly painful. It's like holding your breath while someone is repeatedly punching you in the stomach, but infinitely worse.
His sources say it was agonizing, and it didn't stop there. After restraint, he learned induction.
Induction. That's creating current without actually touching the source, right?
Exactly. He learned how to pull charge from giant turbines without physically touching them. He could drain a battery from across the room. But the most important skill, the one that ultimately kept him alive, was superconductivity.
Superconductivity is zero resistance. That seems like the exact opposite of the restraint he just learned.
It's the other side of the coin. Sometimes you just can't block the lightning. It's too strong. So instead of resisting it, you drop your internal resistance to near zero. You let the lightning flow completely through you without snagging on anything.
You become the wire.
You become the wire. But imagine the mental discipline required to do that while a bolt of raw plasma is hitting your chest. If you flinch, if your resistance spikes for even a microsecond, you burn. You explode.
It's a high wire act where the wire itself is made of lightning.
Precisely. And the equipment they used to train him, harmonic cages, resonance platforms, these weren't gym weights.
No, I saw the diagrams in the source material. These things look like industrial torture devices.
They were machines designed to simulate storms that don't even exist in nature. Plasma storms. The source actually calls them crucibles, not crutches. By the end of the trials, the goal wasn't just to survive the storm, it was to make the storm bend to him.
There's a line in the text I wrote down. It says, by the end, the storm bent to him, not the other way around. That is a really powerful image. But surely there's a cost. You can't just turn your body into a living superconductor without consequences.
You really can't, and this leads us to the tragedy of the incarnate. We see Rivnor at age 20, and he is a wreck in many ways.
What does he look like? I mean, is he just walking around glowing all the time?
On the outside, he's impressive. He looks powerful, intimidating, but closer up. His muscles are constantly trembling. He can't stop it. The residual charge is just always there. Sparks literally crawl across his skin while he sleeps.
That sounds miserable. You could never really rest.
You couldn't. His heart beats in a rhythm described in the notes as more machine than organic. He has fundamentally altered his biology to survive his own power. There's this haunting quote from his instructors during the trials. A storm that never releases consumes itself.
And socially, where does he fit in?
He's completely isolated. Think about it. How do you shake hands or hug your mother or date anyone when a single moment of lost focus could instantly electrocute them?
He's too dangerous to be around. It's like the Midas touch, but with high voltage.
Even his parents were afraid of him. He was revered as a weapon, sure, but he was an absolute anomaly. And this fits perfectly into the NeoMercy theme we discussed earlier. Society shapes technology.
Right.
Rivnor is a living technology, and because of that, he just doesn't fit into the society anymore.
So he's powerful, he's alone, and he's vibrating with enough energy to power a major city. What do you do with someone like that?
You test them. You see if they are ready for their real purpose. You put them in the Storm Crucible.
The term.
It's the final test of the Denjin elite. It's held in a massive dome suspended above the cloud layer, right in the teeth of the planetary storm systems.
And he's not fighting scrubs here. He's fighting lightning duelists, arc riders, people who have trained their whole lives for this exact kind of combat.
These are grandmasters, and they aren't just throwing bolts of lightning at him that would be completely useless against Rivnor. They are using advanced tactics. The sources describe opponents using magnetic manipulation to pin him down.
Pinning him down magnetically.
Think about it. If your body is highly conductive, you can be manipulated by strong magnetic fields. They used his own physics against him. They used ionized plasma to superheat the air around him so he literally couldn't breathe.
They turned the environment against him.
Exactly. They knew they couldn't beat him on raw power, so they tried to beat him on physics. But Rivnor has been a human lightning rod since birth. He sustained heavy damage during these fights, burns that look like constellations on his skin, totally frayed nerves, but he didn't fold.
The visual climax of this tournament is incredible. It describes the clouds splitting, lightning spiraling around him.
The air itself hummed. He wasn't just controlling the storm at that point, he was resonating with it perfectly. He reached a point of perfect conductivity. That's when the elders officially named him Storm Incarnate.
Which sounds like a victory lap. You know, congratulations, you're the best, you won. But knowing this universe and knowing Rivnor, he doesn't seem like the type to retire and just sign autographs.
Far from it. The source mentions something very ominous right at the end of his biography. Rivnor knows this tournament, this title, is all just preparation.
Preparation for what?
A destiny involving something called the Challenging Halls and an entity named Chaos.
Chaos. With a K, right?
Yes, with a K.
Right.
It implies a tier of conflict way, way above planetary politics. Rivnor's goal isn't to rule Arcadia Prime. He's looking up. He wants to claim a place among the 9. Or be consumed trying.
He wants to challenge the gods of this universe.
Which brings us all the way back to that interstellar survival logic. Rivnor is the ultimate expression of his planet. His planet is harsh, highly electrical, and unforgiving. So he became harsh, electrical, and unforgiving to survive it. Now, he's looking at the cosmic hierarchy and thinking, I survived the lightning, I can survive the gods.
It's incredibly ambitious and honestly terrifying.
It is, because remember, aggression level 10. The Denjin don't stop until the threat is permanently removed. If Rivnor decides the gods are a threat, he's going to war.
It's interesting because usually when we hear about characters challenging the gods in mythology or sci-fi, it's out of hubris, it's pure ego. But here it feels like logic.
That's the NeoMercy difference. Yeah. It is pure logic. If the environment dictates evolution, and the cosmic environment includes the 9, then the ultimate evolution is to become something that can survive them. Rivnor isn't being arrogant, he's just following the curve of the graph to its logical conclusion.
That is a perspective I hadn't even considered. He's not a rebel. He's the inevitable result of the system.
Exactly. The system built him.
So let's zoom out and synthesize this for you listening. We started with a universe that has these incredibly strict rules. Environment shapes species, species shapes society.
And we ended with a man who forced his own biology to master those very rules.
It's a perfect case study for the NeoMercy mythos. It shows that in this setting, power isn't a gift, it's an adaptation. And adaptations are usually painful.
He had to become a conduit. And I think that's the real takeaway here. In a system that presses down on you, whether it's gravity or societal pressure or literal lightning, you really only have 2 choices. You break or you change your internal resistance.
You learn to let the current flow.
And maybe, just maybe, you learn to bend the storm.
That is a lot to chew on. Before we wrap up, though, I want to leave you with a thought that has been nagging me since we talked about that aggression level earlier.
Go for it.
We know the Denjin are peaceful until threatened, but they are absolutely capable of genocide aggression level 10 when pushed. We know Rivnor is the storm incarnate, the most powerful prodigy in generations. So what happens to the rest of the galaxy? What happens to the 9 themselves if a guy like Rivnor decides that the gods are standing in his way?
That is the ultimate question. If the peaceful Denjin can justify genocide for survival, what is a storm incarnate capable of to ensure his own ascension? It might not be a battle for dominance, it might just be a battle for existence.
And I, for one, would not want to be standing in the way of that lightning.
Definitely not. Better keep a safe distance.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us into the NeoMercy universe. There is so much more lore to explore here, 99 other planets, in fact. But for now, keep your resistance low and your voltage high.
Stay curious.
We'll catch you on the next one.